It's Saturday, August 29th, 2020 at 4:01 p.m. and thus I am live. And according to what I see, some of you are already watching, so I'm looking forward to hearing from my field producer, either Ryan Newfall or David Calvo, letting me know that they can see me and hear me. Ronaldo Isaac says, Boa tarde, viva la salsa. Ryan says, I can see you and hear you. So that starts things off on the right note. Thank you, Ryan. And thank all of you on this day for joining us as we celebrate the 40th program of this broadcast live on Facebook and YouTube. Please share this with your friends. Let them know that we're here every Saturday and Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. celebrating the very best in Afro-Latin music with some invited guests as well. And I look forward to them joining this party. So start sharing it and invite them to do so. Hola, buenas tardes. El nombre mío es José Mazó. Bienvenidos a mi hogar, el estudio DJD para Divina, que se encuentra arriba con nuestro nieto Carmelo y también con Kaya. Y este servidor, José, el estudio DJ. Celebrando 40 programas en vivo de YouTube y Facebook, sábado y domingo de 4 a 6, celebrando 45 años de aniversario del programa con salsa, lo mejor, nuestra música afroantillana, cada sábado por la noche, por la WBUR 90.9 FM Estereofónico, redifusión pública aquí en Boston, como también en el internet wbur.org. Luego le doy la información. De cualquier manera, hoy estamos celebrando el sonido de la flauta, ya que estamos celebrando una cumbre de flautas. Nuestros invitados para hoy son Andy Harlow y Karen Joseph, y les daré más información sobre ellos, como también los invitados para mañana. ¿Por qué estamos celebrando esto? Why are we celebrating a flute summit? For many reasons. One is that I love the sound of the flute in Latin music and in jazz, but also because as I was preparing the program, I thought about the music that inspired me as a young child. So back in 1961, I was not 11 years old yet, and my father took my brother and I to New York to celebrate a vacation in New York City, and he took us to Yankee Stadium. And here are the 3 tickets from that game. Those are for my father, my brother, and I. I kept those tickets, and I've had them since that baseball game that we went to back in 1961 at Yankee Stadium, first time in the stadium. Here's the program from that game, and then here's the program for the whole team for 1961. That being said, it was a year that Roberto Clemente had a great year, but as far as the Yankees were concerned, that game, Whitey Ford was a pitcher, left-handed pitcher. He won. Mickey Mantle hit an inside the ballpark home run. That was the year that Roger Maris hit 61 home runs, and I became a Yankee fan. Little did I know that years later, I would become a sports agent and entertainment agent with Bob Wolf Associates, and that I would be visiting Yankee Stadium, not just to enjoy games, but to do my work as an agent representing baseball players. But that same year, 1961, this was happening. The sound of the flute and pachanga and the charanga bands that included Pacheco, Johnny Pacheco, the great flute player from the Dominican Republic, who had played flute with Charlie Palmieri. So the sounds that were being heard on the radio were that of the charangas and the pachanga that was being danced, of course, with Pacheco, with Charlie Palmieri, with Joe Quijano, just to name a few. But that music, of course, came from the great bands out of Cuba, including Orquesta Aragon with Richard Egues, the Arsenio y sus Maravillas, Alcaño y sus Maravillas, Antonio Alcaño y sus Maravillas, and other bands and other great flute players. So we're going to hear some of that music, and then we're going to invite our dear friend Andy Harlow to join us. He's already backstage, so later on during this hour, he will join us, and we will invite Karen Joseph to join us as well. But in the meantime, let's hear some music. Let's go to some music so that way you can get in the mood, get in the groove, get into what is going to be a great day of music. As Andy Harlow will say, Charanga time. Here it is. And we'll start off with none other than Johnny Pacheco. Vamos a comenzar con Johnny Pacheco. Deme un minuto para buscar la música.
Dile a la colina que me toque el güiro, sí, que me toque el güiro. Dile a la colina que me toque el güiro, sí, Macorina que me toque el güiro, sí, que me toque el güiro, 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 que me toque el güiro. Dile a Macorina que me toque el güiro, sí, que me toque el güiro. Dile a Macorina que me toque el güiro, sí, que me toque el güiro. Pon tu pensamiento en mí, verás que en este momento mi fuerza de pensamiento ejercer bien sobre ti. Toma el agua del clavelito, toma el agua del clavelito, toma el agua del clavelito, toma el agua del clavelito. Toma el agua del clavelito, toma el agua del clavelito, toma el agua del clavelito, toma el agua del clavelito. Toma el agua del clavelito, toma el agua del clavelito, toma el agua del clavelito, toma el agua del clavelito. Agua caliente. Toma el agua del clavel, ay toma, ay toma, el agua del clavel, ay toma, ay toma, el agua del clavel, ay toma. Y sigue la salsa con salsa y José Mazo. Y sigue la salsa con salsa y José Mazo. Y sigue la salsa con salsa y José.
Bueno, mi gente, vamos a seguir con salsa. Aileen lo dijo muy bien, como también lo dijo Ed Chévere, double entendre. Corina, when you said write the first lyrics, dile a Macorina que me toque el guiro. Not really talking about the guiro that I'll show you later. It's meant to mean something else. But in any case, that was a big hit for Johnny Pacheco back in 1961. My dear friend Edgar Nevares says that album, here he is, he says his mother, Doña Providencia Hernandez, owned that album. And in 1961, when that album came out, my dear aunt Idalia Masso had that in her collection, and I went to visit my grandmother in Salinas, Puerto Rico, where Idalia was living, and I borrowed the album, which is this one, and I never returned it. And you will see her name somewhere in the corner up here, if you can see it. Well, you can't, but it says her name, Idalia Maso. So I borrowed it, kept it, and it's been part of my collection ever since. But that was a great album. Tremendo disco de larga duración para el sello Alegre. Johnny Pacheco en la flauta como director, Carlos Piantini violín junto a José Chombo Silva, Daniel González, el gran José Chombo Silva en el violín. Tenemos a Héctor Peyot, quien fue el pianista, Víctor David Pérez en el bajo, Manny Oquendo en la percusión junto a Jean Palamo y Julián Cabrera en las vocales, Elliot Romero en el coro, Pedro Manuel Callazo. Escuchamos Dile a Macolina que le toque el güiro, una pachanga, como también el agua del clavelito, charanga, el sonido de el gran Johnny Pacheco. So that was Johnny Pacheco, this charanga, 1961. My dear friend Andy Harlow says that was one of the first albums he bought back in 1961, and he'll be joining us soon. So we'll be able to talk to him about all of this good stuff. In the meantime, let's hear some more charangas. Vamos a escuchar más música de pachanga en lo que preparamos para invitar aquí a Andy y Karen Joseph. And I will be talking about some other things later, but right now I think you're going to enjoy what I've got for you right now. So listen to this. Oigan esto. De nuevo, recordando la época de la flauta y charanga en los 60. Okay? Listen to this one. Escuchemos. En nombre mío, José Mazo, comparten esto para que otras personas también puedan gozar y disfrutar la programación de hoy aquí en el programa Con Salsa en vivo por Facebook y YouTube.
Recuerdo de antaño, cómo pasan los años, bongo. Recuerdo de antaño,
So that's Joe Sample in the background. And Nina Garfinkel, Nina la Cubana, saludos. Divina says hello. I'm sure she's watching upstairs on YouTube Live. It's good to see you, Nina. I hope you're doing well. Saludos también para Petra Rojas. Ay, muchas gracias. Se la agradece. Ojalá eso sea verdad, que sea la mejor terapia en los tiempos de pandemia. Y saludos para Wesley Andújar, allá en Phoenix, Arizona. Muchas gracias, Wesley, por estar con nosotros. Saludos a la familia. So, I said that in 1961, I hadn't turned 11 yet. I was 10 years old. It was the year then that I became a fan of the New York Yankees, and also, of course, went back to Puerto Rico after having spent those 2 weeks on vacation dancing pachanga, because that's what was being danced everywhere to the sounds, as I said before, of Johnny Pacheco and Charlie Palmieri, La Dubonnet, and Joe Quijano, just to name a few. Before we go to Charlie Palmieri, who was, of course, one of the precursors of this great sound, I want to make a quick announcement. I'm not going to talk politics today. No voy a hablar sobre política hoy. Mañana sí. Hoy no. Mañana sí. Mañana domingo. But I do want to make you aware that there was a settlement of a court case in Puerto Rico having to do with the music and songs of Rafi Levy and La Selecta as interpreted by his singer Sammy Marrero and his orchestra. A settlement in which Sammy Marrero and the band members will have to pay the widow of Rafi Levy $50,000 in the next 15 years or so. But a fund has been established to assist Sammy Marrero. And I just want to mention that fund now, and then tomorrow we'll get deeper into it. The fund is Campaña Pro Fondo Sammy Marrero y su Orquesta, ATH Móvil 787-372-1498. Esa es la única cuenta autorizada y oficial para la campaña de Pro Fondo Sammy Marrero y su Orquesta, después de la determinación en el juicio y el pleito que hubo entre la familia, los herederos de Rafi Levy y Sammy Marrero y su orquesta. Así que ya lo saben, mañana daré más información, pero solamente quería darle un antesala. Campaña Pro Fondo Sammy Marrero y su orquesta, ATH Móvil 787-372-1498. Mañana hablaré más sobre ese tema. So today's program is sort of like bittersweet for me. It's bittersweet because in one way we're celebrating life, we're celebrating love, we're celebrating all those great things. We're celebrating my cousin's birthday in Puerto Rico, Mario Masso. He's the gentleman in the middle. We're the bookends, the two Joses, me and my son. And we're also celebrating the birthday of a very dear friend of ours, Carolina Trujillo, who's celebrating her birthday today as well. Many birthday greetings to her. We're celebrating love. As I said before, Divina and I celebrated our 45th anniversary this month of August on the 14th. And our dear friend, Johnny Giraldo, my teacher, and his wife, Felicita, send us a framed caricature of Divina and I that came from a picture that we took when we celebrated our anniversary. And they send us a card that is so beautiful, that it speaks to what a marriage is. And just to read a little bit, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but a marriage is measured by more than just years. It's measured by living, by laughter and tears, by good times, contentment, and dreams that come true, and also by hard times that love brings you through. A marriage is greater than simply the sum of all you've accomplished and how far you've come. It's people whose lives you have touched in some way and values you've stood for and lived day by day. A marriage is measured by lessons you've learned, examples you've set, and respect you have earned. It's forged in the balance the two of you find in partnership, friendship, and love all combined. Happy anniversary, and that came from Johnny Felicita Giraldo. So I want to thank him for that kind gift and that gesture, which brought joy to Divina and I. So, Johnny, you know we love you. And I said it was bittersweet because, we're also celebrating the birthday of Rafael Itiel, the founder and piano player of the Gran Combo, 94 years young. But it's bittersweet because this young man right here, Chadwick Boseman, passed away yesterday as a consequence of colon cancer at the age of 43 years young. When my son got the news, he says 2020 has got to stop. He can't continue to do this. It's got to quit doing this, taking away so many people, especially at a young age. You remember we started off the year with Kobe Bryant passing away, and here we are at this moment in time lamenting the death of this great actor. And, Chadwick Boseman, he was impressive, I must say. Too young, too young. And here he is with First Lady Michelle Obama when she was in office. But we dedicate this show to her, and to him, and we dedicate it to all those who are celebrating birthdays. But let's continue more music. Here is Charlie Palmieri. Vamos a escuchar Charlie Palmieri. Then we're going to hear Orlando Maraca Valle. He has a new CD dedicated to the flute. And then my dear friend Andy Harlow is going to join us. And then after that, we're going to have Karen Joseph join us as well. But listen to Charlie Palmieri and his Dubonnet. And then we'll have Orlando El Valle, Maraca, doing some great music right here on Con Salsa. Muchas gracias. En nombre mío, José Mazó. Déjenle saber a la gente que estamos disfrutando de la Charanga.
bailan hasta las abuelas, en la calle y en la escuela, todos la quieren cantar. Con la descarga pachanga se vuelve a la tradición, porque es el ritmo de ayer con la cadencia de hoy. Cuando repiquen los cuentos, no se puede evitar. Es un ritmo singular, un 500 bananas pa' gozar. La pachanga cubana que no te deja un momento sin dejarte bailar, mamá. Por supuesto, con el piano del gran maestro siempre, Peruchín. Tenemos la gran satisfacción y la alegría. Dígalo usted, maestro, presenta aquí.
Flautista histórico en Cuba, en la historia de la flauta de Cuba, el maestro José Luis Cortés. Ya por usted.
Está buena esa presentación. Gracias, maestro. Señoras y señores, estos niños están en la estratosfera y yo estoy subterráneo.
todo se puede gozar. Con la descarga pachanga, todo se puede bailar, todo se puede cantar, todo se puede gozar. Pachanga, pachanga.
Ayude a evitar la propagación del COVID-19. Lave sus manos frecuentemente con jabón y agua tibia. Evite tocarse los ojos, la nariz y la boca. Limpie las superficies que se tocan con frecuencia con rociadores o toallitas húmedas desinfectantes. Cubra su boca al toser o estornudar. Use un pañuelo descartable o la parte interna de su codo. Quédese en su casa si está enfermo y evite el contacto cercano con otras personas. Visite mass.gov/2019 coronavirus. Un mensaje del Departamento de Salud Pública de Massachusetts.
Esa flauta, lo que pide cha-cha-cha. Esa flauta, tiene un sabor natural.
Cuando en los años 50 Richard sonaba su flauta, muchos se sorprendían hasta que se hipnotizaban con sus lindas melodías, que a todos acariciaba, y su eterna cubanía, que a todo el mundo encantaba.
Esa flauta, lo que pide cha-cha-cha. Esa flauta, tiene un sabor natural.
Hoy le estamos dedicando este sencillo homenaje a un gigante de la flauta. Para quien va este mensaje, un cha-cha-cha para Richard con la flauta de maraca, notas que salen del alma y para toda la vida. ¡Hey! Homenaje para Richard Ewes.
Esa flauta, lo que pide cha-cha-cha.
Esa flauta lo que pide cha-cha-cha,
Esa flauta, lo que pide cha-cha-cha.
con un tumbao sabroso tocando,
Esa flauta, lo que pide cha-cha-cha.
maraca sonando, la flauta yumuri cantando.
Flauta, lo que pide cha-cha-cha.
Esa flauta lo que pide de la flauta, un gigante, René Herrera. Aguanta, chico. Esa niña se arrebata,
se arrebata con maraca.
se está soplando René con maraca. Oye mamá,
Con la flauta se arrebata.
esa niña se arrebata.
Se arrebata con maraca.
Ahí escucharon flautas. Orlando Maraca Valle, su nueva propuesta musical se titula Esa flauta, dedicada al gran Richard Egues, gran flautista de Orquesta Aragón. Escucharon ahí a José Luis Cortés, el director de NG La Banda en Cuba, en la flauta en la primera canción. Y luego escucharon René Herrera en la segunda canción. En la primera era Alain Pérez en las vocales y timbales. Gran bajista, pero también percusionista. So, we're dedicating today to the charanga and the flute, of course. Tomorrow, my guest will be Eddie Selvigon, flute player, musical director, and founder of Orquesta Broadway, and Jeremy Bosch, singer and flute player with the Spanish Harlem Orchestra. Both of them will be joining me for the Latin Flute Summit number 2, Eddie Selvigon and Jeremy Bosch tomorrow, Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. Así que mañana tendremos Cumbre de Flauta número 2 con Eddie Selvigon y Jeremy Bosch. De 4 a 6, el gran Eddie Selvigon, fundador, flautista, director musical de Orquesta Broadway de Charanga, y Jeremy Bosch, flautista y cantante de Spanish Harlem Orchestra. What should we do now? You know what I like to do now? I'm going to go back in time. This is 1973. I just graduated from Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio. It's July 20th of 1973. We do a dance at the Old Bradford Hotel here in Boston, featuring La Selecta, Rafi Levy, with Sammy Marrero on vocals, and Andy Harlow, whose hit at that time was La Loteria. And that was the beginning, ladies and gentlemen, of my getting into radio programming 45 years ago. So in 1973, I was part of the group that brought this dance together. And after the experience that we went through, I said, at some moment in time, God willing, I'll have a radio show. And if I do, I will do things that are going to be very different than what I experienced back in 1973. And 2 years later, it was the beginning of Con Salsa. But one of the persons that made that very, very memorable for me, and saludos también para ti, Isabel, saluditos. Good to see your name there, Isabel. One of the persons that made that possible for me was this gentleman right here, who I'm bringing on board. And he is Andy Harlow.
Jose.
And you know him as the younger brother of Larry Harlow or Judio Maravilloso. But before I bring him on, let me put some headsets on
Yeah.
so I can hear him talk. Hold on, Andy.
Go ahead. What happened? You're in the show, it says. Can you hear me? I'll put your headphones on.
I hear you loud and clear. You sound good, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. I'm enjoying this. This is like a whole new experience for me.
Well,
I'm an old school guy.
hey, you and me both. So let me
But you
see.
know what? It's breaking the pandemic monotony. That's for sure.
Well, we're learning new things, Andy. We're learning new
That's
things.
right.
So
Exactly.
welcome to this Flute Summit, in which you and Karen Joseph will join me later. And I started off talking about Johnny Pacheco and La Charanga y La Pachanga in 1961
That's the
when I was
first
10
Latin
years old.
record.
Yeah.
That's
What,
the first album I ever bought. $2.99. I think it cost.
do you remember where you bought it? That's the question. Do you remember the store you bought it at?
Well,
Was it
actually,
a
in those
Woolworth, a
days,
Sears?
I was working in retail record stores.
Uh-huh.
I was 16 years old, and I worked part time in a record store.
So you had access to all that great music. $2.99. You remember those days? $2.99 for an album.
Listen, I memorized every flute solo by Pacheco. That's how I learned. It's funny because I'm a Jewish guy from Brooklyn. I got turned on to Latin music through my brother and other people. But anyway, and then at the same time, it was the pachanga craze,
Right,
the early
right.
'60s. Okay,
Right,
and
right.
I played saxophone and was just learning how to play the flute. But I didn't know anything that this music came from Cuba. I knew nothing about Aragon and Fajardo and Richard Egways and Arcaño. I didn't know it. I thought, wow, this is brand new stuff.
So you just
Later on, I learned, the history of the music. I made it my business to learn the roots and the history of the music, and I even studied it in college. But and with all the other stuff. And when I came to Miami, forget about it, because that's when I met Fajardo and Cachao
and you got it firsthand. So
Yeah.
let's back up a second. So you were 16 years old. You're the younger brother of Larry. How old was Larry back in
So Larry
1961?
was 21 already. He was playing with Latin bands. He was gigging, and I was just starting to work as a musician. I was only 16 years old. I had already spent the summer in the Catskills, working and playing the saxophone. And I came from a musical family. My father was a bass player, and so.
And so let's
just-
let's pause
But
there.
then
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah,
You said you
yeah.
come from a musical family. The musical family was not the Harlow family. It was another family. It was not named Harlow. What was the name of the family?
Well, the family name was Khan, but my father's professional name was Buddy Harlow.
Okay,
That's
hold
where we got the name from.
Buddy Harlow. Listen
Yeah.
to this. Listen to this.
Oh, yeah. Señores,
Señores, va a empezar la lotería.
¡Que salga el número!
$21,512,
10 pesos,
25,901.
15 pesos,
El 13
50 pesos.
empezó la lotería.
Va para adelante, Yanni, para adelante.
El 1 acaba de salir un pelao. Es el 90. Uno para arriba, otro para abajo. 69.
Este es mi número.
8 con 3, 7 con 2, 5 con 6, 96.
Ah, that song. La Loteria. The great Johnny Vasquez on vocals. So you immerse yourself, but you weren't in Miami when this came out. You were in New York. You said you were a
No, no, no.
saxophone player. You were a saxophone player. What saxophone did you play? Did you play
I
alto,
was
tenor?
mainly all of them, but mainly tenor.
Tenor. And then you picked up the flute as a consequence of listening to Johnny Pacheco, or
Well,
how did?
played all the woodwinds. I played clarinet in high school. I even played oboe and bassoon. And then a little bit after that, when I started in college, then I studied music. I was a music major. So.
Okay, so music became, and of course, the flute.
But I was lucky. I was already got my feet into playing professionally, and I was only a teenager. I wasn't making a lot of money, but I was already learning the music business and learning getting the real street education about being a musician.
And
it's
you
one
said-
thing to study music in school and another thing to go on a
Yeah, to
gig.
go out there and do it. You said you played the Catskills. Who did you play with?
No, well, my first band was like four guys from high school. We went up to play in a little old Jewish hotel. I was 16 years old and we made $30 a week.
A lot of money. That was a lot of money. Come on.
That
now,
was like
back
in,
then.
yeah,
Yeah, back
in
then.
1960, 1961.
Yeah, that would have been considered.
But I learned a lot. I learned how to play at a show. I learned how to play for dancing. I learned how to transpose music. I learned how to learn repertoire. Learned how to play in tune.
All the things that you have
Basic
to.
stuff.
The basic stuff. And your father, Buddy Harlow, what did he play? What was his
He was
instrument?
my father was a bass player who sang in many languages,
Uh-huh.
and he was the band leader at the Latin Quarter in Manhattan when I was
he
growing
really?
up.
Is that right?
In the 40s, 50s, and the early 60s. So it was in the blood,
It was in the blood. So how is it that you put a band together and wind up recording La Loteria and then also recording this selection? Hold on a second.
Hay una sorpresa para bailar, hay una sorpresa, hay una sorpresa para bailar, hay una sorpresa, hay una sorpresa para bailar, hay una sorpresa. Óyela, cómo suena esa flauta, óyela. Óyela, cómo suena esta flauta, óyela. Óyela, cómo suena esta flauta, óyela.
There it is.
Óyela, cómo suena esta flauta, óyela. Óyela, cómo suena esta flauta, óyela. Óyela, cómo suena esta flauta, óyela. Óyela, 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 óyela,
I love that.
óyela.
So let's go back to how you put this band together and who were you at that moment in time as a flute player. Who was influencing how you were playing flute? Was it Pacheco, or was it that you got turned on to Fajardo, or you heard Richard Egwes, or
It was a little bit of all of them. I was still learning,
mm-hmm.
to tell you the truth, at that time. Now, how I came about to the first album, the Sorpresa La Flauta, was basically most of the guys came from Larry's band, except for the singer and the timbale player, but the rhythm section was, and the horn player, the trombone players, and a different piano player, because Larry produced it. Ismael Miranda co-produced it. Ismael worked with Johnny on the vocals and stuff, and Ismael wrote 4 or 5 of the tunes from that album. And
So the
we got
band.
La Loteria was an old 78 that Larry had found, originally done by Salinas. And Sorpresa La Flauta was from Cuban Jam Session with Fajardo.
Uh-huh.
And the other tunes were Miranda's tunes, and Oh, listen, some guy who I saw on the thing, he said that he liked, see, I guess he was Colombian because he liked
Yeah, he is
Primer
Colombian.
Mutuno, Primer
That's
Mutuno.
Johnny Giraldo. Yeah, he's Colombian.
Right.
He's our dear friend, my teacher.
Yeah, I know. We went to Medellin a couple of years ago when they went crazy when we played that. And it was written by Correa Alonso.
There you go.
And
There
it was
you go.
not, it wasn't a hit here. It was only a hit in Colombia. And that was, you know,
that happens, but Colombia is a great place to have a hit if you're going to have a hit. So,
and that's from Sorpresa La Flauta also.
how did Johnny become part of your the band? You said you brought Johnny and
Okay, Larry, Johnny was singing with, I think it was Orquesta di Coupe or one of the other bands that recorded for Fani, a young band. And Larry saw something in him. And when this whole deal, let me back up 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I told this is on the liner notes of the reissued Sorpresa La Flauta, where it said, I went up to the Fani office with Larry one day. This was like in 1970, 71. Larry had to do some business with Masucci. And then out of nowhere, Masucci says, hey, why don't we record your brother? Because, you know, Masucci's always thinking about, you know, offshoots from one band to another and this and that. And I thought he was kidding around, and he wasn't. And that's how the whole thing started. I had no real interest at that time in being a band leader or nothing. I was doing other things. I had just graduated college and whatever.
So it was one
and
of
that's
those.
how it happened.
So,
and then I looked at here, Bing Bang Boom, the biggest 45 record, the biggest selling 45 Fani ever had, and I'm a one-hit wonder.
Yeah, well, you were in the right place at the right time, as
Exactly.
they say. In the right place.
And then, you know, things moved on from there. But
so
then the second album was my band. Then when La Loteria became a hit, and we're starting getting gigs, and I'm signed with Cabello, and I'm opening for Tito Puente, and you know, so I had to put a band together.
Put together a band. You put together.
And
Do you remember who the band members were back then?
Oh yeah, sure.
Who were they?
Well, A.B. Lima, the percussion session was A.B. Lima and Steve Colon and Ruben Figueroa, and different bass players and piano players, mainly Joe Madrid and Eddie Guagua, Jose Madrid and Eddie Guagua, and Mike Gibson and Art Barron on trombones. And that was the basic band.
And you were
for a while. Pulpo was my piano player for a while, but back in those days too.
Gilberto Colon. So you had a band that was working, but this was the sound that was being heard.
Well, I know, you know, I always wanted good bass players and good piano players.
There you go.
That's A.B. Lima on timbales. Now on
I love it.
on that album, that's Ricky on bongos, Frankie Rodriguez on congas, A.B. Lima on timbales, Louis Kahn and Leo on trombones, and there were two bass players and two piano players. It was either Andy Gonzalez or Joe Santiago, and the piano players were Alfredo Rodriguez or Joe Madrid, Jose Madrid.
Not a bad lineup there, my friend. Not a bad lineup.
No.
So let's talk about at that time. Estamos charlando aquí con Andy Harlow, el hermano menor del Judio Maravilloso Larry Harlow. Su papá, Buddy Harlow, fue tremendo bajista en la música y también cantante, así que la sangre de música es parte del legado de los Harlow, de Khan, y ya lo vemos en las canciones que acabamos de compartir con ustedes de su primer éxito, Sorpresa la Lotería, Sorpresa la Flauta, con la canción La Lotería y Sorpresa la Flauta. Y vamos a hablar un poco más sobre ese momento. So during that moment in time, you say you had to put a band together and start working because you signed with Jose Curbelo as your agent. And then
I went doing the Cuchi Frito circuit and
explain for folks who don't know what that means.
Similar
to the
all
blues,
the little clubs in Brooklyn and the Bronx. Basically, what happened was, and this is the goddamn truth, that basically the band leaders didn't make any money in New York. Mm-hmm. If you had made enough, because the club owners didn't want to pay a lot of money, they could get a lot of bands to work, you know. So basically, you took those jobs to keep the band together. I made my money when I went to Philadelphia or when I went to Boston.
Right. Right.
Or I went to Washington, D.C., or we flew to Puerto Rico. So that's how the music business was in those days. The clubs were, but you had to work 4 or 5 nights a week to get the guys in the band who relied on that as the main source of income. And I'm telling you, in those days, the gigs paid $40. I mean, we weren't making big,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You had to put up with all the sleaze of the music business. Well, that's my alarm going.
Somebody's calling you on your phone, but that's okay. This is real time.
No.
This
I
is what
had the alarms. Anyway, and then you had to put up with all,
yeah,
unscrupulous promoters, record company things, and all kinds of nightclub owners and promoters who ran away with your money and everything else.
So
I learned real fast.
You did this gig with you in La Selecta, which was 1973, my first gig. I recall you and I were talking about how it was that you got up to Boston. It wasn't like we flew you. We didn't fly you to Boston. We didn't put you on a bus to Boston. We didn't have a tour bus for you to come to Boston. You didn't drive your own car. Remind people or let people know how it was that you got from New York to Boston for that gig.
Well, also because I wasn't a big star that could make demands on people. But they sent us 10 Greyhound or Trailways Greyhound tickets from the Port Authority. And whoever it was met us when the bus got to Boston. And then I think we stayed in a hotel room.
You did. You stayed at the Bradford. You stayed right there. You spent the night there. Yeah.
And we took the bus back.
You did. Exactly. That was that round trip. We got your round trip ticket on Greyhound, which was very popular back then, and it parked right there on St. James Street, and then we picked you up, brought you to the hotel. Which was
one thing about Jose Cabello, because he had a lot of pull, because he managed and booked Tito, Eddie Palmieri, Larry, Charlie Palmieri, and right on down the line, Joe Cuba. So when people would call for Tito, he would tell them, "Well, you got to take Andy Harlow too."
No, Cabello was good at that.
So I was paired up with Tito a lot of times.
Cabello was good at doing that.
We were like his opening act, or sometimes we would play till Tito got there because he had 2 other gigs.
He was doubling. So you say that the money really was on touring, meaning performing outside of the city. You were working regularly in the city, but you had to work a lot in order to make some.
Right. Well, club-wise, if you did a private party like a charity event, a church dance, it wasn't like a night. It wasn't the Hunka Munka or the Corso or the Monte Casino or one of those places. Yeah. Then maybe you made a few dollars more because it was retail and not wholesale.
So then let's talk about that gap. So when you start playing, you're still learning the flute, and you're also learning how to play Latin flute, which is somewhat different than playing jazz and whatever other kind of flute. Describe for those of us who are watching you and listening to you at this moment, when was that moment that you found that sweet spot of really feeling, okay, I've got control of this. I can stand next to Jose Fajardo or Pacheco or any flute player and at least keep my ground. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to play better than them, but at least be able to say I did a good job.
Well, it took a few years to build up my confidence too, and but I got there. I'm not saying I was the world's greatest flute player, or I am the world's greatest flute player, but listen. I got up there standing next to Eddie Zervigone and Andrea Bratfeld, and held my own. I was.
You did. So nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed about. You did a great job as far as I'm concerned.
Considering that I was a saxophone player.
Yeah, it wasn't like people walked away saying, "Man, that guy can't play flute." They walked away. They enjoyed your flute playing, and you had the feel for it. Similar.
On the other hand, I wouldn't dare go play jazz flute somewhere because I was, I was a good, okay flute player, but I wasn't, I'm not Dave Valentino Paraco or Barron.
So you mentioned that when you moved to Miami, when did that happen?
1976.
So 5
years.
I
came down here with a sextet to work 6 weeks at a nightclub. I came with Marcolino Dimond, Eddie Guagua, Pablito Rosario, and a couple other guys, right, to work at the Numero Uno, and I stayed. Hey, most of the guys went back. Guagua stayed for a while, and most of the other guys went back, and that's where that's how it happened. I thought, oh man, I'm going to make a killing here in Miami. but things worked out. It was okay.
But a 6-week gig outside of New York in Miami.
In the middle of the winter, we drove down in a snowstorm.
So you made it, and there you are in beautiful sunshine of Miami. You got a
Oh yeah, are you kidding? We were like pigs in a sty, you know.
But the band you mentioned, they're not second fiddles. I mean, Michaelino
No,
Diamond
no,
on
no.
piano, Michaelino on
Yeah,
piano,
Guagua
Guagua
on
on
bass.
bass, Pablito El Indio Rosario on percussion,
On timbales,
on timbales.
and I forget who the conjugate was, and the singer Edwin McDonald.
Okay, so you had at least 3, 4. You know, yeah.
Yeah, you remember I played vibes too, so
There you go.
I played saxophone and vibes. So
And what was the reception like for you in Miami, where at that time, right after the Cuban Revolution, you're now in the 1970, you're in the 1976 Revolution, 59, 60. So now, there's a very strong Cuban presence. What was
but the
reception
salsa thing was happening in Miami already. They were bringing bands from New York all the time, and La Loteria was, this was a couple of years after La Loteria. This was 75, 70, at the end of 76. It was okay. No, it was good. And then when the guys went back, I started playing with all the local guys. What happened was Fajardo was always here.
Mm-hmm.
Fajardo was working with a quintet, with Carlo Alberto singing and Kenny Gomez on piano, and Connie Hill. And then about a few months after I moved here, Fajardo moved back to New Jersey. And Flaco and Kenny and Tony started working with me. You know how that goes,
I hear you.
But Miami was different. There was a lot of nightclubs with small bands, quartets, quintets, sextets, and they were all like 4, 5, 6 night gigs. It wasn't like New York. It was a whole different scene.
Yeah.
And that was swinging for a while, but then that fizzled, that changed when the Mariolitos came.
Did you get a chance to go down to Puerto Rico with your band?
No.
So
We never played in Puerto Rico. I don't think I ever did.
So
We went to Panama. We went to a lot of places.
So Rafael Vieira, you remember Rafael Vieira, who owned the record store, the famous
I
record store in
went,
Calle
of
Serra?
course, I went there to do promotion.
Yeah, he said he promoted you in Puerto Rico. He pushed your album.
Yeah, sure. That's where I met Tite Cornet.
Tito Guerra Alonso. And then my dear friend Luis Rodriguez says that he spent a lot of times at the dances at the Bradford Hotel here in Boston. And when La Selecta would perform, he was there. Jimmy Camacho, what a treat, Jose. Thanks for this awesome interview. Thank you. So here's another one of yours. Now we're listening to one.
Where's Karen? Where's Karen?
This one, I'm looking for it right now. So this one, I think, comes from this.
That's the one I was talking about. That was the Andy Harlow band.
Okay.
That's how we sounded out in person
Okay. Listen to this.
on a good night. That's
This
not
one
it.
comes from here. This one comes from this one.
Yeah. Eso tiene pupi en el violín.
Ritmo de azúcar.
Es un número de Aragón.
y la garreta.
La flauta me llama, la salsa cubana. La flauta me llama, la salsa cubana.
All right. So it appears that Facebook.
Yeah, just cut out the flute solo.
Yeah, no, let's not cut out the flute solo. So what's happening? Both you and Andy, hold on a second. Both you and Karen, I've just been informed that Facebook has cut off the stream. So I'm going to have to reboot and bring you back on again. All right. So I'm going to end this and bring
So
you
what
back
do
on.
I have to do? Nothing?
I'm nothing. I'll send you another link and bring you back, both of you
Oh,
back on.
I got to check the email again.
Yeah. Okay. Karen, do the same thing. Facebook just ended the stream. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Stay right there. Stay right there.
I'll stay right. I'll
Yeah,
stay
well,
here.
I'm gonna see if I can. No, I can't. I'm gonna do a new one. So, what will happen is I'll send you an email. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
So I can close this one out.
Yeah, close this one out.
All right. It's been fun.
No, we're good. Don't worry. We got more.
We're good. I'm cool. I'm having a good time, man.
Yeah.